Hey, what's going on, guys? J-Mac here. So today we're going to showcase an updated Poison Grin Reaper build with patch 2.1.2. And in this patch we got ancient items, and I think one of the best things about ancient items in general is the fact that you get so much more damage out of an ancient weapon that a lot of builds that may not have been quite efficient enough for T6 farming to compete with some of the other better builds like Jade Harvester or Carnival or Star Metal builds, for instance, are a little bit closer now. Because the majority of the time with T6 farming, once you get geared and you're really over geared for the content, some other more obscure builds tend to become more and more viable because things are just dying so quickly anyways. With Jade Harvester, for instance, you're dealing more damage than you need to the majority of the time. So things like this start to become more and more viable. Now, you're still probably going to clear faster in T6 with an optimized Jade build or an optimized Carnival build than this, but this is efficient enough to compete with those things. And I think honestly there's a lot of different builds that you'll be able to run in T6 with this patch, mainly because of ancients, and especially the ancient weapons. I mean, an ancient offhand helps as well, but you get such a damage boost with an ancient weapon like this. So my plan is to put out a good amount of videos with just different, kind of cool, interesting builds that you'll be able to run in T6, because Season 2 is right around the corner, and honestly, the majority of the farming you're going to do is going to be in T6. You're going to be farming experience for paragon levels in T6, and you're going to be farming legendaries in T6. So, obviously if you're pushing Greater Rift content at a really high level of difficulty, yes, each class is going to have, one, maybe two builds that are able to do that and be able to compete on the leaderboards. But for T6 farming, especially with these new ancient items and ancient weapons, there should be a giant amount of builds for T6. In my opinion, as long as you can do a T6 Rift in 5 minutes or less, it's efficient enough. Now, like I said already, some other builds for each class might be able to do one in 2 or 3 minutes, potentially. But when you're talking about a really long season grind, and being able to switch up builds, having 5 or 6 different builds to run in T6 when you're farming 4 or 5, or potentially 8 or 9 hours a day, depending on how much you play. If you're a casual player or more of a hardcore player, having more builds to run you're not gonna get burnt out as quickly, and you're gonna have way more fun, in my opinion. Alright, so spec-wise, we're running Haunt Poison Spirit, the new Haunt rune. Haunted enemies take 20% more damage from all sources, and it is now a poison ability. And we're going to be stacking poison damage on our gear to buff this, but I'm going to be pretty much spamming this ability. I have the mana efficiency from my gear to do so, and everything will be slowed as well. Now, if you don't have the mana to just spam Haunt like I'm going to be doing, you can always just switch over to really any of the Plague of Toads runes. You can run basically any of the ones that are poison. You can run Rain of Toads if you're just using a generic ancient weapon, or you can run Addling Toads if you happen to have an ancient Renho Flayer, if you're lucky enough to have that. One of the two. Acid Cloud, Lob, Blob, Bomb. Pretty much, I cast this every now and again on trash, but for the most part my mimics will be casting it. Piranha's Wave of Mutilation. I like this a little bit better in the build than Paranado because it's off of cooldown way more often, and this is one of the other abilities that on most packs I will cast it one time, and then the mimics will also cast it, and we're running Strong Arm Bracers for the knockback effect to get more damage there. Spirit Walk Honored Guest for mana recovery. I could probably run the build without this, but with spamming Haunt so much, it's a little bit easier on my mana with the Honored Guest. Otherwise, if you're running a build, like I said, with any kind of Plague of Toads rune, you could run Jaunt here instead for more movement speed. Fetish Army Headhunters. I'm running 4-piece Zuni in the build, and the build is mostly poison, so we're going to be stacking poison damage, like I said, on our pants and our bracers and things like that. So it's going to buff this ability. Corpse Spider's Spider Queen. Now, your own character can only have out one Spider Queen at a time, but the mimics, they don't go by that rule. So sometimes you'll see anywhere from 10 to 15 Spider Queens out attacking an enemy at once, which is probably the coolest part of any kind of Poison Grin Reaper build in general. Pierce the Veil for more damage. Fierce Loyalty for movement speed, Fetish Sycophants. Now again, we are stacking poison damage. These are physical, but even with not stacking physical, this just gives you so much damage, and this actually spawns fetishes really quickly, even with Haunt. It's not as fast as Plague of Toads, but it's fast enough that we have around 10 fetishes out the majority of the time in T6. And then Grave Injustice for cooldown for CDR. Let's take a quick look at the gear. So we've got the Grin Reaper Voodoo Mask, chance to summon horrific mimics when attacking, and with spamming Haunt, you're going to have the mimics up the majority of the time. This is a relatively common Voodoo Mask, so when Season 2 drops, you should be able to get this pretty quick, and as soon as you get this, and literally any ancient one-handed weapon, you can run a variation of this build. Obviously, you're not going to have all the pieces of gear that quick that I'm running in this video, but you can run some kind of variation of it. So we're running Gift of Solaria, again, just a really high damage one-handed weapon, and like I already talked about, just having an insane weapon like this with just tons of damage is going to enable so many different builds in T6. It's pretty crazy. So we're going to run that. Now obviously any ancient one-hander that has a proc to it, like a Thunder Fury for instance, is going to be better overall, but the damage itself is the most important thing. And early on in Season 2, more than likely you'll be able to just craft a one-handed legendary ancient, because you're going to get, you should be able to get, probably on day 1, you'll get a plan for a one-handed legendary weapon. So we're running that. We're running 4-piece Zuni. We got Zuni Trail here, Zuni String with Fetish Army damage. This Zuni Pox, not very well rolled, but it does give us the bonus. And we've got the Ring of Royal Grandeur to get the 4-piece bonus with crit damage on that. We've got Swampland Waders with poison damage. Just disregard the poison dart damage that was rolled for Carnival. You probably just put Vitality on these instead. We've got a Strength Witching Hour, unfortunately, but it's still so good. Attack speed, we can haunt more often, and the attack speed is going to give our pets more damage along with the crit damage as well. We got Augild's Rule with Fetish Army damage, and the Augild's Shoulders with Fetish Army damage as well. And then we're getting that 3-piece bonus from the Ring of Royal Grandeur. We've got the Strong Arm Bracers with poison damage, and again, that knockback effect we'll be getting from Wave of Mutilation for even more damage. We've got an S of Johan, which is really nice in the build. The pool is pretty good, but really any amulet that has crit damage, crit chance, a socket, and then preferably poison damage or your main stat is going to be good enough. Obviously, if it has a special effect to it, the better. We've got Tasker and Theos, not necessary for the build to work, but obviously it is a very big damage boost. We're going to have 7 fetishes out from Fetish Army, and then we're going to have out 10 to 15 from the passive, so it does give us quite a bit of damage. So that's pretty much all the gear. As far as the legendary gems go, Bane of the Trapped, with all the abilities we're running, we're going to get that effect almost all the time, especially with spamming Haunt. Haunt slows everything, so just from Haunt, we should have that effect up. Then we're going to run Gem of Efficacious Toxin. We're stacking poison damage, so it's going to buff the dot effect, and then everything takes 10% increased damage as well. And also, your pets will apply this effect. So pretty much everything is going to have this dot on it almost all the time. And then the third one's going to be Bane of the Powerful. Now, this is just a really nice static damage boost. There's probably 3 or 4 different legendary gems you could run in the third slot potentially. Pain Enhancer and Enforcer come to mind. So if you decide if you don't want to run Bane of the Powerful, there's definitely a few options there. As far as Paragon points go, get as much movement speed and core as you need. I have 11% on my boot, so I needed 14%, then go Intelligence. Offense-wise, I'm already at 50% chance to crit for my pets. You can go more crit chance than that, though, because not all your damage is coming from your pets in this build. But definitely go crit damage first, as long as you're at that 50% cap, then attack speed, then CDR. Defense-wise, armor percentage, life percentage, then all resist. And then utility-wise, if you are running Haunt, resource cost reduction first. If you're running Plague of Toads, you don't need this. Then just go area damage, life on hit, and then gold find. So we're going to run a quick T6 Rift. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm going to turn my mic off for the gameplay portion of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.
I wish you luck.
my fire.